It's important to understand that when people bandy about the term disruptive innovation, they're often using it incorrectly or loosely, and because I think people think, oh, that's a rapid technological advancement that's doing something interesting, sounds disruptive, that's a cool term, I'm going to use it here. But in order for us to actually use the term correctly, there needs to be a convergence of vectors occurring. So you do need to have some kind of technological enabler. You have to have something that helps you scale your low-cost value proposition up market. You have to have a foothold in non-consumers. Back to those children or the hobbyists in the Apple example, you have to have people where the hurdle, the performance hurdle, is a lot lower than trying to appease those digital equipment customers. You have to have asymmetric motivation, meaning that what you're developing, if I'm a disruptive entrant, whatever I'm developing shouldn't threaten those people in that centermost circle. It should be attending to a different set of non-consumers and allow me to gain traction on the periphery and ultimately get better and better over time. And then you also have to have business model innovation and disruptive channels. And one way to think about that is both digital equipment and IBM actually both had access to personal computer technology. They knew how to make personal computers. But what was different about what IBM and Digital did between the two companies is that Digital tried to incorporate it within their existing business model. And so the only way that it made sense for them to invest in personal computers was if they started charging $50,000 for a personal computer, which obviously wouldn't make sense because they were selling for $2,000. IBM, on the other hand, separated their personal computer business headquarters from their mini computer and mainframe companies, which were set up in New York and Minnesota. They set up their PC headquarters in Florida and allowed them to thrive and just create their own way of doing business with low overhead, low margins. They had complete autonomy to build a business model that worked specifically for personal computers, and who survived. So this is also something that really needs to take place in order for us to actually deploy this term. So one thing I just want to talk about briefly is that people tend to talk about disruptive innovations as some kind of event, but it's really a process that occurs over time. So if you think about the computer example, it's 10 years go by before the personal computer technology is really even viable enough to get better and better and start attracting more and more sophisticated customers. Toyota was able to disrupt the Detroit auto industry by first coming out with the Corona, not the Corolla, but the Corona, which was a subcompact car in the 50s and 60s. But it's not really until the 80s where that effect is really palpable in Detroit. So the reason why I bring this up is that disruptive innovations never emerge as that perfectly formed, excellent product. They're usually just good enough. And that relates specifically to higher education, because what people don't understand is that the process of disruption actually began as early as 1989, when the first fully online private ventures began at University of Phoenix and then later at places like DeVry. And when we think about University of Phoenix, we often recoil from this and think, well, that was a really lousy educational experience, and that has absolutely nothing to what I'm doing in terms of, where I am at my traditional institution. But again, just to reiterate, that disruptive innovation doesn't need to be a perfectly sophisticated product. It has to be just good enough. And for the people who actually attended University of Phoenix, this was a really flexible, convenient opportunity to pursue an education without having to stop working. So they can continue to feed their family and make money, but also finish a degree. So it really does offer a new definition of what's good. And typically, they're sort of often simpler, more convenient, less expensive products that appeal to new and less demanding customers. Now, in the case of higher education, University of Phoenix is not cheaper. It's actually about $570 per credit hour, but people were willing to pay that premium because of that flexibility and convenience. Over time, we've had newer waves that have been innovating on price, like American Public University System, and now we have even lower priced models through these online competency-based education models coming out of Southern New Hampshire's College for America. You have it at Northern Arizona University, University of Wisconsin. And these are comparable to community college prices or even lower. And they're subscription models so that students can actually sort of do as many competencies as they can possibly do in a 3 or 4 month period often.